Welcome to the LiftKit Marketing Podcast, where we celebrate the people behind the campaigns, the tech, and the hustle of modern marketing. I'm your host, John Hoeft, founder of LiftKit Marketing, joined by my co-host, Danielle Schermerhorn. Today, we're kicking off episode 1 with a true trailblazer, Andrew Eklund. Andrew is the founder of Ciceron, Minneapolis' first digital marketing agency. He's a visionary who's been riding the wave of digital disruption since the internet dial-up days. In this episode, Andrew shares stories from his 30-year journey from launching e-commerce before it was a thing, to building his own CMS before WordPress even existed, to what he's doing now in the AI space and his work with TAAN Worldwide, a global network of independent agencies. We get real about the agency life, entrepreneurship, burnout, reinvention, and why now more than ever, we need to get out from behind our screens and back into real human connection. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome to a LiftKit Marketing Podcast, episode number 1, actually. I'm excited about this. I've got a special guest today that I've known for quite a while, new to Danielle, so I'm excited to get you two together and start talking. But I don't know, Danielle, how was your week? How are things going from your end?
Week has been really busy, really good though. I'm prepping for a really crazy weekend. I'm running a half marathon tomorrow. Not sure if I'm going to survive, so if you don't see me next week, that's why.
Yep, that's exciting. I mean, there's something about having those kind of goals, right? You're getting a little bit outside your comfort zone.
Yes.
You're probably feeling a little nervous, but you got to embrace that. Just like anything else, public speaking, running a marathon, big presentation. My week was good. I was thinking about what defines a good week, right? Obviously, if you're closing business and your clients are seeing results and you're getting recognized for it, that's obvious a good week.
Yeah.
When those kind of things aren't happening, my other kind of good week, which was kind of like this last week, was taking time to learn, taking time to work on the business, taking time to meet more people. I had a lot of in-person meetings this week. So
that's awesome. A
lot of new things are entering the top of the funnel in terms of my pipeline. And that's good. That's a great week for me. And just, the value of networking and taking advantage of whatever's going on locally and the ad community or the marketing community is really important. And some advice for anybody is like tap into those local ad groups, your interactive media associations, whatever it is. Those are really important, which kind of leads me a little bit into my guest, who's the president of a global ad community.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm anxious for you to meet him. His name's Andrew Eklund. Andrew, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Happy Friday to all of you.
Absolutely.
Happy
Thanks
Friday.
for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to your intro there, John, and I too spent a lot of my week out in the community with people. And, now that I'm sort of in a bit of a transition myself, which I'm sure we'll talk about, the first thing I do is I schedule in-person meetings with people. I don't schedule an email campaign or even a LinkedIn, whatever. I quote unquote pick up the phone and get breakfast going.
That's great. A lot of people don't do that anymore. And, there's something about that in person. Even though all my life, most of my career has been virtual, you just really can't make up for it. You cannot discount the power of an in-person meeting. That's how John and I connected and came up with this podcast idea, was an in-person coffee connection.
Yeah, we've known each other for, a couple of years, but have never really met in person.
Yeah.
But when we did, it meant so much more and so much more came out of it. I think a lot of people, they're protective of their time. And it's like, okay, I really got to make sure this is worth it. I'd rather book a whole bunch of, 15-minute intro calls and then qualify people before I'm going to do a coffee or something like that. Whatever it takes. But this community, there's no bad apples, right? In this community, Just get out there and shake some hands and have some coffee. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I know, Andrew, you are known for having the first digital marketing advertising agency here in Minneapolis. Ciceron. For 30 years, you've owned and operated this agency. That's an unbelievable accomplishment. So hats off to you there. I know there's been a lot of ups and downs, and you're going through a transition right now that we're both excited to learn more about. So why don't you kick things off with just a little bit about your journey? There's a lot of agency owners and marketers on this call that I think are going to definitely be inspired by how you got started and that journey.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it has been and continues to be an amazing journey. I'm spending quite a bit of my time right now reflecting on so much that I've learned over 30 years. And to be honest with you, while it was happening, I don't think I had a lot of time for reflection. I mean, it was just a constant for 30 years, a constant day-to-day hustle. I mean, that's just what it is when you run an agency or any small business of any sort. It's funny how it works, but it's like people want to get paid every 2 weeks, and you can't give them the entrepreneur's journey. Right. And, the mortgage comes, the daycare expenses need to be paid, and they're the first to get paid and you're the last. And that's what you do. That's what I did for my career. And, I'm really trying to take time right now to sort of reflect in month 3 post Ciceron in a wind down of that agency and really hitting a restart on my life at 57 years old. Tomorrow's my birthday. 57 tomorrow. And, truth be told, I may work forever, but it would never be like what I've done for 30 years. I'm looking forward to a different pace of life and really to be able to concentrate all of my time working directly with leaders. Ciceron was known, as you mentioned, sort of the original digital agency here in the Twin Cities, but that we called ourselves a digital agency. But, it was every 6-7 years where we abandoned everything we knew and picked up the mantle of whatever needed to happen. And so, we went from helping people understand what the internet is to getting them their first email addresses, to getting them their first websites, to getting them their first content management solutions, to figuring out how you get indexed into Yahoo because Google didn't exist. Eventually, we had half our staff were developers back in the early 2000s. And then content management came along, like WordPress and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't need developers anymore. And they had to retool and realize, okay, well, what's next? I guess I don't need to develop these custom websites anymore. Now that's in a box. So what am I going to do next, right? And then by 2015, we were a full service digital media agency, right? And then I don't want to say the end, but by the end, we were really a data and insights and early stages of an AI company. And so, there's like 5 different eras within those 30 years. There's 5 different startups within those 30 years. And so people always say like, oh, you must have been a mature company and I'm sure you had all the time in the world and could step away whenever you want. No, man, we were always in startup mode. 30 years of endless startup mode.
Yeah, you got to stay nimble. Innovation is key. Don't forget the fundamentals, but learn, adapt, like Madonna, just reinvent yourself.
Well, if you would have stayed where you started, you would have been out of business.
A long time ago.
Yeah, right. I imagine 50 years ago when you were 7, that when you were imagining what you wanted to be when you grew up, that you weren't thinking, I'm going to own and start the first digital media agency in Minneapolis.
Correct.
How did you get even into marketing and what were the things that led you up to that?
Great question. It's funny. I've had a chance over the years, as I'm sure you have as well, to speak to college campuses and or guest lecturing. And I'm always asked that, what classes did you take in college to prepare you for a career in the internet? It didn't exist. The internet existed, but it was like a military thing, right? I graduated in 1990 and the web was invented in 1991 and the web browser was 1993, I guess it was. And I started Ciceron in 1995. So you think about like the gap between 91 to 95 or 92 to 95, that's sort of the invention of the web to starting an agency. I think of it as like the invention of ChatGPT in November of 2022. And right now it's the same gap, and so I was really fortunate very early in my post-college career. I just gave you the timeline. So I had roughly 4.5 years of working before I was working for myself then for the rest of my life. And I had one job in particular where it brought me out to San Francisco a lot. And so in 93 and 94 and then early 95, I was in the Bay Area quite a bit throughout the year at different conferences, specifically in the graphic arts business back then. But, it was Apple, it was Adobe, it was Quark Express, it was these desktop publishers, it was software, it was the early stage of Photoshop, and I was going to all these conferences and this internet thing, which I had already been dabbling in. And I don't want to say dabbled in the internet. Like before there was internet, like AOL was cool for like a day, right? And so like I started a community on America Online, like basically like a Facebook group. It was for my job. It was for the members of the trade association that I was helping run as a young person. And we were a global organization. And so we had this, I got people up on AOL and, we would share documents and have chat and do, anything that you might do now. But it was just like way before anything like that. And so I had this understanding that technology made the world small and it brought organizations together really well. And that was work from home virtual in 1992 and 3. So I just caught the bug. And then the instigation for me was that I downloaded the Mosaic browser. And when I say download, I mean, it must have taken overnight, I assume, to do that. The Mosaic browser from Mark Andreessen and the Champaign-Urbana, University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana, they put it up on a server someplace. I bet I got it from AOL. I bet I went to AOL and went to an FTP server and downloaded Mosaic, and then I'm out browsing the internet for the first time, right? And I really just caught it. It just made sense to me. It made sense to me that this was just going to be a better way of communicating. And I just caught the bug, and I found an investor who was one of the members of the trade association. And I said, I want to start an agency in Minneapolis, which at the time was the 6th largest ad market in the country. Back when agencies had to get in their cars to drive over proofs over to General Mills or over to Target or over to Best Buy or Medtronic. Per capita, we had like more Fortune 500s than anywhere else outside of maybe California. To service that business, that's why we had a lot of agencies. Like you had to get in your car and show them the proof of the work, that you would print out on boards. And it just made it easier to do that. But nobody was doing digital. Nobody was hanging out a shingle doing digital. I mean, I'm not saying that I was the first person to be on the internet. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there were no agencies for it. And I got an investor and we started in the summer of 1995. It was everything I just said. It was literally convincing people that the internet was going to be a thing. And I caught massive resistance. Yeah. And I caught people saying, it's not safe. They're going to take all of our information. It's going to get leaked out to our competitors. Why would I put my sales information on the internet? And all my competitors will have it. God forbid we talk about transactions. So a year later in 1996, I started an e-commerce company in the music business. And I think we were one of the first e-commerce business for sure in the music industry. Wow. And we were doing streaming. We were using real audio and you could only stream 30-second clips, right? Because again, and you couldn't download a CD. That would take 3 weeks. Do these 30-second samples of your favorite bands, and then we would send you the CD in the mail. And so, but I did that, in 96, it was called Indie Sonic, and I started that company, not just because I was also in the music business, and I was not the business. I was a musician. I was playing in bands and all this kind of stuff. And I had a network of bands that were trying to figure out how to get known. And I had already started Ciceron. And so we skunk worked this other company and started working in that. But I really did it just to prove to my clients that people would actually put their credit card numbers online, would actually buy, you could do it securely, and you could send them something through the mail and it would show up and you had a happy customer. And I did all of this just to prove that people would do it. I had to start a company to prove that people would do these things that we just think of as being completely and totally normal.
I really love that because you had to pivot, but that's just such a crazy way of pivoting.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people would not be willing to start a whole nother thing just to prove to someone. They would say, whatever, it's not worth it. Just why didn't you stick with just the music? Why were you using that as leverage? Why didn't you just stay in music?
Well, that's the question that I've asked myself for the rest of the 29 years, Danielle. Actually, that's a really interesting, I'll tell you that story real quick. So we ran Indie Sonic for 10 years. So in 2006, we sold it to CD Baby or something like this. And when I say sold it, it wasn't like, I don't think I could buy dinner for myself for what we sold it for, but we didn't want to be in the mail packing business anymore. And streaming still wasn't quite a thing yet. And so the business model was, and it also sort of outworn its welcome as an e-commerce company. It had done what we wanted it to do. But what's really fascinating, the name was Indie Sonic, and we were all about independent music, right? We were all about not being part of the record labels and being able to be self-sustaining as a band and not have to sign a label. And you could go direct to consumer, direct to fans and make it that way. And to be honest, I got a lot of my sort of like early experience in that whole community because I've always been a big jam band guy, as people know. I used to play in the Big Woo. We were a Grateful Dead Allman Brothers cover band. And then my brother and I left the band because I started Ciceron and he was teaching. And as soon as we left, they got really big and they blew up because maybe we were the boat anchors. I was into Fish, I was into the Grateful Dead. And so all these bands were all about community and all about using the tech. And you think about like The Well in San Francisco, one of the very earliest bulletin board systems. They were all a bunch of deadheads, you know what I mean? Like these Unix programmers who invented the internet were going and tripping balls on the weekend and going and seeing Dead shows in the park. And so it's like that whole community of like the jam band world, the community elements of like the Grateful Dead and the Fish community of rec.music.fish, which was one of the early bulletin boards where you just find out the set list. I mean, like I was steeped in that world. And so for me, this was all just like normal. Fast forward like 15, 20 years later, and my major clients at Ciceron are Warner Music, Interscope Records, all the major labels. So maybe I sold my soul, but it was really fun. And we did amazing things with those labels too. And we did some really innovative stuff around streaming and these kind of things too. But so I was able to keep my music chops going during that whole time. But, I'm back sort of independent again, and I'm embracing independence across everything that I do. And I just believe in the power of that. But it was a fun business, just a totally different business. And then Ciceron was doing really well and paid for our health insurance. And I started having kids and things like that.
What instrument did you play?
I started as a classical French horn player. So I went to St. Olaf and I played in the St. Olaf Orchestra. And then I started playing the bass earlier, and I played in a band in college. And that was awesome. It was really fun. And then my brother and the other guys from St. Olaf, after I graduated, started the Big Woo, and they needed a bass player. And so I came in and I joined my brother in his band, and it was awesome. And we were playing, 45-minute Allman Brothers Mountain jams and Grateful Dead shows. Yeah, it was just a blast,
Yeah, how people end up where they are and end up in these agencies, it stems from something, a passion, and that's the perfect example of what you've done. I think you started to talk a little bit about some successful clients that you had. I'd like to hear over the years, and I don't want to put you on the spot and say, the most successful campaign or, this particular client or anything like that, but some examples of like some real aha moments where your innovation and your tech and your people and the way you think and how you were able to help some of these clients grow. What really stood out in terms of like an amazing aha moment, effectiveness, a big win, however you want to put it, for a success story for your agency?
I'm going to tell you 3 separate era stories quickly. I think the first time where I had that really big aha moment was one time we had a developer, our very first employee, named Adam Rebholz. He was just one of these guys who would drink a lot of Mountain Dew and smoke cigarettes and work all the time, and usually work at night. And I remember one time we came to the office earlier one morning, maybe 9 o'clock in the morning, and Adam had clearly been up all night. And he said, "Hey, come over here, take a look at this." And what he had done was developed, for the first time that I had ever seen in my life, was a web editor that allowed anybody who knows how to use Microsoft Word just keep their website up to date, right? Just could go in, type in whatever else, highlight, select it, click a button. It's, just the same sort of thing that Microsoft Word would have, B for bold, I for italic. It just was a user interface for a content management solution. He essentially invented WordPress before WordPress.
Wow.
And I remember looking at that and saying, that is amazing. So now our clients don't have to call us to ask us to update their website, and they are empowered now to take these tools that we built for them and allow them to do that, right? And that to me was amazingly powerful. We were giving the energy and the power of coders who were really harnessing under these maintenance retainers. Well, the only way we're going to make money is if our clients send us Word documents and things like that, and then we code them into their website. When I saw what Adam had done, I did not have a concern that we were working ourselves out of our retainer business. I was like, we are giving the power of this technology to people who don't know how to code. And that was amazing. So that's one example. It was fast forward now probably 15 years. And it was really when I started bringing in more staff and a couple of really great leaders who really understood the programmatic space. And we got on that train really fast. And it was just, our vision was you'll be able to buy any inventory in an auction versus having to call a sales rep and say, hey, I want to buy a series of banner ads, which, by the way, we also know don't work. and I want to do a site takeover. And we're doing it to make our client happy so that the CEO can look and see that their banner ad was on whatever, theeconomist.com or something like this. It was like a vanity thing. It's like you didn't buy audiences, you were just buying impressions and all this kind of stuff. And now we could buy audiences. And we could take a data set from over here and put it over here and find people like them and start to really, really be surgical with media investments. So again, you would think to yourself, well, so the first time you did it, you worked yourself out of a job doing maintenance contracts with clients so that they could send you Word documents and you could put them online for them. And now you're saying you're trying to minimize the media investment that your clients are making because you're getting rid of all the waste, right? We're getting rid of all the impressions that we don't need and only focusing on the ones that are going to have a high return. So all of a sudden I work myself out of that job because that's supposed to be a percentage of media spend. And I'm telling my clients to spend less, right? So that's number two. The third story would be when I was working very early on in AI in probably 2023 for a client. And I realized that we were having all these conversations about who their customers actually were. And so what I finally realized is that they had salespeople who were talking to these people all day long, every day. And they're having hour-long conversations with a prospect. And those hour-long conversations were getting captured in notes that were sitting in Salesforce. And then some of them were like way out there on the edge and they were recording their calls, right? Like the things that we do now with Zoom, just like any other time, right? Or they were starting to use Zoom or whatever else, and they were recording these calls. And the only thing they were using them for was for meeting recaps. Here's a transcript of the call we had, boom, right? Check the box, done. Project manager, account manager sent the meeting notes. But what I looked at it and I said, this is intelligence. This is the actual human intelligence around your business. These are hours of conversation that are taking place every day across your sales team. They're being centralized. They're accessible. They're sitting inside Salesforce. They're sitting inside your Zoom accounts. They're sitting inside Google Meet. And I took those things and I centralized them all in one place. Right? And then I applied ChatGPT to it and prompted the crap out of it. And I gave my clients new personas based upon real people. And it completely changed how we viewed who our audience segmentations were. And it made them real time. And it meant that we could act in media against those new personas. And that was the first time where I was like, I finally had a tool that could just take all the information. I could build a little LLM for a sales organization that's highly attuned to what's actually happening on the phone or whatever the calls or whatever it might be. And you look at that now. Well, I don't look at it now. I still look at that now and I'm like, oh my God, still nobody does it. We're still checking the boxes and sending meeting notes and letting the intellectual property of our business evaporate every single day. And so I would say those are the 3 times that I've completely and utterly like put myself out of business in service of empowering people to be smarter, really.
I love that.
You're creating these efficiencies, which everyone's striving for more efficiency, do more with less. But and then you've got margins, and it's how we make money and people, and that balance is just constantly in flux. But in the end, your job's to look out for the client and get them the results they want without them going broke.
That's right. And try not to go broke in the process yourself.
Yeah.
Which I've done 6-7 times.
Yep.
Well, there's, I think, a few different types of agency owners, and there's the ones who do things that are right by the client because they care genuinely from the bottom of their heart to see success. And then there's others where they're very smart in a selfish way of trying to grow their business, be more profitable, and don't always do the right thing by the client. And so I guess in my experience, that's what I've seen. And it's just interesting that I don't feel like you often see an intersection of those two points of view. I want to go back though to some of the things that you talked about that are so common problems that when you talked about ChatGPT, like internet starting and chat being very similar, parallel to ChatGPT starting now, the concerns that people were telling you are exactly what we're hearing today. Why would I give this information? It's going to be stolen. It's not safe. Do you feel though today that those concerns are valid?
Oh, see, I didn't see where you were going. I thought you were going to say, do I see that they're invalid? I think that you're exactly right. Everything is following carbon copy, not just the technology. Well, I'll come back to that in a second. Not just in terms of the disruption that the technology inherently brings to the status quo, but in people's response to it. I'm really struggling with that right now, Danielle, in the sense that I want my clients to ingest all of their operations, all of their information, and apply this technology to all of that so that they can be smarter faster, right? I mean, that's just my desire is for them to do that. Am I willing to break the rules to do that? Absolutely. Because I'll never be able to show them the benefits of doing this if we don't take a little bit of risk, right? The fact of the matter is somebody really going to go in and into ChatGPT and say, give me all the financials of my top competitor? I mean, they could, and I'm probably sure that I've done it, right? But I think that it's more like, right, like put the safeguards in place, like make sure the data is in a secure place. And if you need to run a local LLM running on a laptop to make it happen, then do it. But do it, right? Yeah. That's the thing that I get most troubled by. And the one thing that is repeating itself now, that repeated itself in the late 90s, is that people are allowing the speed bumps in the process of getting to the future. They're treating them like walls, either for fear of their legal department or protocol of some sort or whatever. The amount of innovation that's stifled simply because of protocol is what's going to keep those companies from even surviving. And so coming back to the pace of technology, that is totally different now than it was in the 90s. The adoption rate for the internet is, I mean, let me just put it in perspective. When I started in September of 1995, there were 40 million people on the internet worldwide. We got to 100 million ChatGPT users within the first days. I mean, wow. Days, whatever it is. So it was the fastest adopted technology in the history of technology, ChatGPT. And it just became, and that's because of the virality of how messages spread these days now, right? You just go to the App Store and download it and you're done, right? On the internet, it was like, well, I don't even have a modem. I don't even know what a modem is. How do I plug in the modem? And then I plugged in the modem and I found out that I have this thing called a 2400 baud modem, right? Well, now it's going to take, you got to like start downloading the picture, go have dinner, and come back and see the picture when the picture has downloaded, right? When we first started when we first started building websites, we had to have very minimal number of images on the web page because it would take too long for people to load and they would hate my client. So when you fast forward to all of this, the adoption curve is so fast. And I think there's plenty of companies that are willing to throw legal at it or all sorts of other things at it in order to slow it down, in order for them to get up to speed with what needs to happen. I don't think there's any question that people think that I don't think anybody's questioning whether AI is going to be a thing or not.
Right.
I really don't. And I don't feel like they did as soon as they saw it, right? When they downloaded ChatGPT 3.5 and they started playing around with it, sure, it hallucinated a few things, and sure, it didn't have access to all the things you wanted. But nobody was like saying, this is just a toy and it's stupid and I'm going to put it away.
Oh, we know what this is about. We know what's going to happen here. This is going to be really cool. There's going to be all kinds of naysayers and whatnot, and we're going to have to overcome some things and get some regulations going. There's going to be the innovators. There's going to be the laggers, whatever. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's really energizing for me personally. It's why I'm out on my own doing my own thing. And I think, Andrew, I'm so excited for you taking all that you've done over 30 years and packing it all up into this next chapter. And, you and I talk about AI a lot. You're a big influence on, my thoughts and my approach with AI. I'd love to hear more about where you're going, what you're doing right now. I know you've got some exciting things in terms of how you're helping CEOs and executives navigate this space. You're leading up as an interim president of TAAN. I want to hear more about that.
Well, it is really, really exciting. And I hate to say it this way because I think I'm probably taking a fresh coat of paint over a kind of dirty wall on this one. But, as I look at Ciceron, when I shut it down, was a media agency. It was not an AI agency. It was a media agency, and it was AI in service of media. And if I were to be honest with everybody, I was just tired. COVID really took a lot out of people who enjoy culture and enjoy the camaraderie of people working together and rolling up their sleeves. And, we had a whiteboard table so we could write on the table. I mean, everywhere. And just putting up ideas. And I always struggled with, work from home and so forth and different things like that. And so what happened to me was I really wanted to pivot to AI fast. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at scale. You can't start at scale. And so I was trying to sort of like layer in AI into the agency. And I think we did that very well. But selling AI or selling an AI forward solution to clients, I realized once again, the hard way, that it was too early. And maybe the use case hadn't been there or the fear had been there. And this was during a time where the LLMs were hallucinating quite a bit. And so, an attorney would find out something and all of a sudden it's kiboshed, and that's just what it was. And so I think I was definitely too early to AI from an agency perspective. What I am able to do now is just go, and go and do. So what is that? So what I'm also realizing right now is that's really important that I'm taking right out of the playbook from 1995 is don't overcomplicate it. So what I've realized is that just like the internet had, we have language barriers already, language of the field of technology. When I talk about large language models and I talk about, the need to have Python developers and, and we have its vector-based learning systems. Like why am I even saying any of those words? It doesn't matter, right? I'm not out to impress anybody by my understanding of the new acronyms of this business. Acronyms are the only thing that have alienated me from the market for 30 years, right? And every new McKinsey or whatever wants to come out with a new acronym that they own that, oh yeah, well, that was us. It's like, well, thanks for nothing, right? So right now, what I'm doing is I'm concentrating almost entirely on what I'm calling AI alignment. And AI alignment starts in the C-suite. And I'm saying there's no way that this group of people is going to be able to lead the AI revolution that your business is fundamentally going to have to go through, whether you like it or not, without the 4 or 5 of you being in complete alignment as to what these opportunities are. And I'm going to try and help you unlock the intelligence that's sitting within your own organization right now, so that when we start incorporating AI and we start to ask it questions, it's trained on your business. We're going to take all of your content. We're going to take all of your financials. We're going to take all of your decks that you purchase. We're going to take every recorded phone call and Zoom call that your sales organization or your customer service teams or whatever, we're going to centralize that all in one place. And guess what? This technology that you have on your phone knows what to do with that stuff, and then can bring out the outside internet world to contextualize it even more. And I think that's what people are looking for. It's like, I don't want to make big business decisions based upon Reddit and Wikipedia and whatever else. I want it to know my business. So that's what I'm doing, is just to start there, is to start with the C-suite and put a new chair at that boardroom table that is like the AI assistant, right? And John, you know this, I started something called the Intelligence Hub at Ciceron, and I'm stealing it from Ciceron and bringing it with me to say, I just want a hub where everything goes. And then we can train and fine tune it and ask it questions and have conversations with it. It can listen to our conversations. We can ask it to come back in and refine. And I guarantee you that you'll get to the decision that you need to make faster, and that you will still have agency over those decisions. But right now, you can't do it because the information's all over the place. And so I'm not replacing anything. I'm actually capturing the stuff that's here right now that you're not capturing, that just leaks every day. So when we do that, then what happens is that we can start to have articulate conversations about how is this technology going to play across our organization. And now what you're doing is you're giving direction and guidelines and encouragement and great leadership to your teams of people who, by the way, are already doing all this, but they don't know if they're going to be getting in trouble for it. They don't know if they're going to lose their job for it. They don't know if their job is to replace themselves or to turn themselves into 2 people. They don't know. They haven't been told. And not everybody's an entrepreneur. Most people want to be told, what are the rules? What do I need to do? How can I further the growth of my company? How can I make this a better place? They know the technology is powerful, but they're waiting. And they're waiting for one of 2 things, either for their own leadership team to come down from on high and giving them the blueprints, or they're going to go to somebody else who's doing it. And they're going to leave this company because that's what they want to do, because they can see it. And they know that their future is in this technology, but they don't yet know where the guideposts are. And that is, if I can help solve that and get people comfortable with it, we can avoid the 20 years that it took for a lot of other companies to get digital. We don't have 20 years this time. You've got maybe 3 to 5. Just look at the compression, and that's what it is. And by the way, you're not going to have the time, because a startup may be well-heeled, maybe not. Maybe it's the classic 2 people in a garage story. With these tools, are looking at your business and saying, wow, incredible amount of inefficiency, incredible amount of stuff that's being thrown at that's from the old school that they're trying to do with the new school. And I mean, just look at the LLMs themselves. I mean, Apple can't launch an AI, right? They can't do it. And it's because what? It's too big or it's whatever. And so we're back in that nimble stage again. We're back at the turning points of these technology curves where the new nimble ones are looking at the insurance business. They're looking at the financial services business. They're looking at blockchain and AI. They look at all that and they're going to mash that thing all up together. And they're going to say, you know what? Sorry, JP Morgan, we figured out a different way. And they can't wait. And so, and the issue is 99% of all businesses have a mark on their back right now, whether they know it or not. And so my job is to try and help them avoid what it took 20 years in digital to try and do this now. Because it's way easier to disrupt yourself than it is to be disrupted. And so it's really, really exciting, but it's urgent. And I don't say that because I want to land a bunch of business. Because to be honest with you, I don't want to land a bunch of business because I'm deathly afraid that I'll go start another agency. And I don't want to do that. Right. But I'm just telling you, I'm just saying to people that it's happening. It's here. It's now. Look at where's all the money of venture capital going? It's going into this technology. And yeah, there's going to be a massive bubble and we're going to have our .com moment. And there are going to be a bunch of LLMs that evaporate and a bunch of companies that evaporate. But out of that's the next Google, the next Amazon, the next Facebook. The Mag 7 all came out of that stuff, right? All the Mag 7, the S&P 500, 70% of its profits, 75% of its profits come from a very small number of companies. And the companies that they are coming out of, almost all came out of 1999, 2000, right? With the exception of Facebook, which was 2006 or whatever. So let me tell you about TAAN. So TAAN is an organization that's near and dear to my heart. It's TAAN Worldwide. Originally, it stood for the Transatlantic Advertising Network, which it still is. We are a membership organization of independent agencies, which means no holding companies, no shared P&Ls, nothing like that. You own your business, you run your business, and you're a member of TAAN. And so in 2036, we'll celebrate our 100th anniversary. And so you can imagine it probably came out of the newspaper business and the magazine business and all of this. And then eventually TV got into play in the 50s. And so all of a sudden we had, I'm sure advertising got layered in. And then eventually in the 90s, you had pre-press companies probably, and then it was internet. And now we are a wide berth of agencies, independently owned agencies, everything from brand and creative agencies to super highly verticalized, social media companies. So it's really fun. And I've been a member since 2014. During COVID, I was the chairman of the board of governors of TAAN. And then about a year and a half ago, our fearless leader, Peter Gerritsen, had some health issues that also coincided with the time that he really needed to retire and wanted to retire. He'd run it for 17 years. So I've been running it sort of behind the scenes for the past year or so. And then officially, as of a couple of weeks ago, I'm helping the organization get through this leadership change. And then hopefully, as long as they'll keep me. My job is really to help grow the organization globally, to continue to attract this sort of fierce independent agency people, not just into TAAN, but into the next stage of what it means to be an agency. And we're very much at an inflection point in the industry, not just at TAAN, but in the industry, is what is an agency? And I think that is being redefined on a daily basis. And so my job is to continue to attract new innovative members who are redefining what it is to be an agency into the network. The network is it's a peer network. We have 2 in-person meetings throughout the year, a global meeting and then a European meeting or a North American meeting. Lots of content throughout the year, whether it's webinars, research. We have research partnerships, different research organizations, and then very active Slack channels just to glue people together. Right. The biggest problem for independent agencies is that they're owned by independent agency owners. And we're also fiercely independent, which means that we never ask for help. And we also fiercely believe in ourselves, sometimes too much. What TAAN does is give people essentially a very, very trusted, confidential network of other people who know exactly what you're going through. So we're not like I'm not knocking any of these other organizations. We're not like a Vistage or something like that, where you're sitting across from a small business owner who owns an HVAC company, and I own an advertising agency, and somebody over here owns a law practice. It's like, to a certain extent, we share commonalities among that. And on the other hand, it's super different from one another. And that running an agency is different than anything else. Whereas I'm sure running a plumbing company is different than anything else too. But that's what we're doing, is providing a very, very tight-knit group of agency owners and their leaders. And we meet regularly, and we provide the level of support that agency owners don't typically ask for on their own, or don't want to ask for from their peer who might be across town, who also runs an agency, but is also a competitor. I'm a little different than that. I've reached out to my competitors throughout my entire career. I'm very close with a lot of my major competitors in the Twin Cities, and we're dear friends, and we get each other through things, but it's not the same as working with somebody who might be in Brussels or
Right.
Oslo, right? So it's just a great, great network. But I do tell people, if you're joining an agency network to see how much business you're going to get out of it, you will fail at being a member of TAAN. It's not about that. It's about establishing trust. It's about sharing your expertise. It's 90% about learning about how to be a better business owner. I mean, we don't talk about advertising all the time. We talk about financials. We talk about project management software. We talk about AI a lot, but we talk about running a company. We talk about HR, how to run an agency how to run virtual agencies. I mean, the vast majority of us, this is a new thing. We came out of running agencies where we were running cultures. You all know that, right? Like, agencies and culture go together. I mean, agencies are some of the most culturally rich businesses that have existed. It's why we had bar carts and dogs running around and razor scooters back in the day, and drinking during business hours, which, by the way, some of us quit. But at any rate, that's always been it's Don Draper, it's the whole thing. And that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, in very, very few places. And so agency owners like me were always like, how do we bring that back? And the answer was, it's never coming back. Or you can try, but if you're going to try and get people in 5 days a week, you're not going to be able to find the talent that you want, at least now at this time.
Well, agency, I think if you're in marketing but haven't been an agency, you can't relate. The agency life is just completely on its own, so different.
Yeah.
It's very fast paced. You have to know so much. I think you're putting out so much more work, and it can be a very lonely place for an owner, especially because, as you mentioned, Andrew, you were basically a startup for 30 years. And what I have found as a former agency owner was, I realized this is not a scalable business. It is, you want more work, you have to do more work. You want more work, now you have to decide, do I bring on more staff or do I work longer hours? And then you say, okay, well, I'm going to command a higher premium, right? A higher retainer. Well, then you have other things. Oh, do I let these guys go because now they're not paying that? There's just always constantly these decisions. And I think it's one thing that nobody's really cracked the nut on how to truly scale an agency. Maybe that's why AI is so important right now. Is that what you're finding? Are those the conversations happening, Dan?
Yes, my first clients are agencies. In my consulting practice, my first clients are agencies, and not necessarily TAAN agencies. And I think it's because agencies are the ones that are really, I feel like they're on the first line of all of this. And this is the reason why I think there's so much anxiety in the agency business right now, is very different than what it was before. And so what I mean by that is, I had to navigate 3.5 major downturns. Right. I had to navigate .com, and then 9/11 was really soon thereafter. And then 2008, 2009, and then COVID. And the AI one, coupled with COVID, is really, really bad on the agencies for 2 reasons. First of all, in order to work long hours, in order to be able to be in the high anxiety business that high level of customer service agency business is, where the client really is everything. And we're in a business that's fickle, other than the media business, which is, of course, not fickle. Creative is inherently fickle, right? Everybody has an opinion on creative. right? I mean, and least of which might be the CMO who hasn't shown up to the other briefing meetings or anything else, right? And you hope not, but that's oftentimes the case. In order to keep that all together, you had to like each other and you had to work together and you had to work long hours together. And that's why you had rich agency cultures. So if you strip that away, okay, so that's one part of it, right? So it's hard to keep people all sort of like rowing together because it ain't that much fun, right? You could at least use to balance it with more fun or whatever. And we invested a lot into doing that because you had to do it. Like you had to have the counterbalance to the hard work. And so you played hard, worked hard, and that was agency life. The other dynamic, well, there's two. So the other two dynamics is that we're always the first budget to go when things get tough, and we're the last budgets to come back. And by the time the budgets come back, we just had a whole generation of technology also pass us by. So not only are we under constant financial pressures, knowing that the dollars that may have been earmarked for 2025, they can go away at any time. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they've said, oh no, we're on contract through the end of the year. We all know what happens. It can get pulled. They just don't have that power. And then the second thing that happens is AI. And AI, we're all looking at it and we're saying, to be honest, AI could displace everything that we're doing, right? If I'm in video production, what's the future of Sora, right? What's the future of all of the different video platforms? What's Adobe Premiere just going to do? Because they have shareholders and they want to do right by their customers. Hey, super easy mock-ups for you to take that brief and we're going to just mock up some videos for you from the brief, right? And now you can show the client just like storyboards, but they're moving pictures with realistic people and with a voiceover of Johnny Depp speaking. You know what I mean? And we didn't have to hire Johnny Depp to get the voiceover. Now we'll have to hire him when we actually want to hire him to do the spot, right? So all of this gets compressed. It's really hard to navigate.
Yeah.
No culture or not sustained culture, budget pressures all over the place, and then technology displacement. That's the agency business right now.
And I think that's why these things like TAAN are so beneficial, right?
Yeah.
Not only just from a sharing and learning perspective, but the physical nature of getting together. And I think the event business is about to boom.
I agree with you.
Coming off of COVID and whatnot, and so much remote work. And so, the culture might not necessarily be as fun in your company or your agency, but boy, going to that industry event and, seeing all the speakers and going to all the parties, and that feels like what the marketing industry should feel like. I'm excited. I'm gearing up to go to Inbound, a show that I've been to. This will be my 4th or 5th one.
And the first one in San Francisco, right?
Yep. First time it's in San Francisco. It's sold out. I mean, it's a great event. A lot of marketers in one place.
You know what's interesting about that, John? I will be interested to hear how that, when you come back from that, what it was like socially. Because what I go to a lot of conferences too. I haven't been to as many in the last couple of years for some maybe fairly obvious reasons, but I started to notice that people who go to conferences don't know how to conference, don't know how to socialize, don't know how to walk up to somebody at the cocktail party and just shove a hand in there and say, my name is Andrew Eklund. Who are you?
It's not for everybody, right? I mean, some people just aren't wired for, getting in that kind of uncomfortable zone.
The muscles have atrophied over COVID.
Yeah.
But also I'm parenting preteen, or actually no, now a teenager. And I read an article recently from New York Times that kids want to get off their phones, or you want the kids to get off their phones. This is what we asked them of how to do that. And it was more in-person time together. Interestingly, the people blocking that from a teenager's perspective is their parents and adults, because hey, we don't have time. I don't know where you'll be. There's no safe place. And so they're actually not even gaining those skills and it actually went into let them fight, let them work these things out, because they're not learning that right now because they're just going on red or blocking somebody on social media instead.
Breaking up with somebody by unfollowing them on Instagram.
That just happened.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Not to me.
This, I mean, this is an incredible topic that I would, Andrew, this isn't the last time you're going to be on this podcast.
Yeah.
And
I can be like the All In podcast where like Brad Gerstner shows up every 6 episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I seriously think that. And I think there's topics like this one about, adolescent and AI and socialization, education, with AI. I mean, it's impacting everything, and we can just pick a topic, pick an industry and go. In terms of how it relates and how AI is going to impact it. So I think there's more to come there. But, to your point, I'll be taking note at Inbound, and I plan to come back and share a lot of insights and observations here on the podcast as well.
Great. Well, to the two of you, good luck with this endeavor. I think it's great. Despite what everybody tells you, the world does need one more podcast.
Right.
It needs yours.
We're hoping. I mean, it's an opportunity for us to, obviously dive in with people like you and learn more and share it with everybody else.
Yeah. The goal here is to lift others up. So we want to, like you said, it's a lonely place, constant grind. You maybe aren't recognized. You're the first to go, last to come back. And so the whole point here is lifting people up in that marketing space who have done such incredible work. And thank you for sharing your story with us, because you've had such a great career and you're not done. You have so much more exciting things coming up.
Yeah.
Maybe the
absolutely.
best.
Yeah. So, and on that note, I'd love to hear from you. Are there individuals out there or even companies that you've got a lot of respect for what they're doing right now in terms of marketing that you'd like to lift up?
Yeah, great question. And I did do my homework. I knew that you were going to ask this question, and it was funny. I've been meeting so many people in the last couple of months. I mean, amazing people from just all different walks of life, and people have been really nice to sort of open up their network to me. And for the last couple of years, I just wasn't getting out as like I used to, and I was kind of navel gazing, to be honest. And it's just been so much fun. I mean, my coffee budget's insane. But I've met a young person recently who is starting the new version of what IndieSonic was back in 1996. And his name is Johannes Larsson. He is a very recent grad of Georgetown University. He is the son of a gentleman that I've gotten to know who introduced me as he heard my story. He said, "I need you to talk to my son." And I get that all the time. And I talk to young people all the time. Johannes is really, really smart. And he started a new music streaming service called Campfire. And Campfire is, and I'm sort of informally advising him right now. And Campfire is a not-for-profit streaming company that is trying to turn the financial model of the music business on its head. Whereby the artists would get 80%,
no small task,
right? 80% of the revenue that would come from streaming versus the peanuts they get now. And I've been talking to them like, I don't understand why it has to be a nonprofit. And I think it's partially just for the mission of it, which I think is great. And so I want to give a little shout out to Johannes Larsson, young guy, fearless, very nice, and also knows how to get his hands dirty from a coding perspective, and is navigating the world of raising money right now, which is not the easiest thing to do necessarily from Hopkins, Minnesota, or wherever you are. And he's going to make a go of it. And it's a really great idea. And so, and partially I love it just because I kind of feel like I'm sitting across from a young version of me. Or at least I tried to make a go of it. And now he's making a go of it. And it's really, really exciting. So I'd put him out there. And then not specific shout out, but I just like to put a shout out to a lot of the smaller agency owners here in the Twin Cities that are having to quickly pivot and quickly determine what their futures are with this new technology and are doing it fearlessly. And we don't have it all figured out, but I do think that even our local organizations, whether it's a MEMA or an AdFed or all the different groups that are out there, just like you said, John, now more than ever, we need to get people in rooms. We need to get people to the clubs and the bars and wherever we used to do things like that and showcase our work and get excited. We need to know what's happening here locally. We're still a very big ad market. And I think we've become quite insular over the last few years. I used to know what was going on everywhere because we'd all show up at the same things. And I feel like that's a dying art that we have to bring back. And then frankly, let's be honest, a lot of people who used to work at Ciceron don't over the years, and they've worked for other agencies. I've stolen from other agencies' talent. And you know what? That keeps us all vibrant and alive. And we got to keep doing that. We got to keep robbing from each other and paying each other off in different ways. And I just don't see it happening as much. I'm literally trying to get out there and do it. But there are also there are other meetups. There's the Minnesota Blockchain Initiative. There's Applied AI with Justin Grammons and the things that he's doing, and leaning into the new spaces that are talking about the world. They're talking about the future as though it's happening now. And they already live in the space of blockchain. They already live in the space of AI. They're not thinking about it, they're doing it. And that happens right now, right here. We don't have to go to other places to find it. It's right here. And I think there's way more innovation going on right now that we're not getting credit for, that we need to at least celebrate ourselves first and then tell the story out there in the world.
Yeah, super excited for you. This has been amazing as always. Great to have you. Great to have your support for what we're doing. And like I said, we will have you on again, and I will see you in person very soon. And thanks for joining the LiftKit Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, John Hoeft, founder of LiftKit Marketing, a consultancy dedicated to supporting agencies and marketers with their digital growth strategies.
And I'm the co-host, Danielle Schermerhorn, a former agency owner and current e-commerce specialist with deep experience across both brand and agency sides of the marketing world.
Each week, we'll bring you conversations with marketing professionals who are doing great work, whether they're leading teams, building campaigns, launching products, or just figuring it out behind the scenes.
Our guests will share their personal journeys, the real stories behind their success, the challenges they faced, and the wins they're most proud of. We'll also hear what's next for them and what they see on the horizon for the industry.
At LiftKit Marketing, we believe in celebrating people, recognizing great work, and lifting up those who are making an impact. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the episode.